Okay. All right, so we're officially going to get started. I'm Heather Krause. I'm the founder of We All Count, which is an organization devoted to the practice of equity in data science. And this is Talking Data Equity, which is an informal live gathering that we do a lot of times on Fridays, where we talk about the specifics of how to align your data work and your data projects with your equity goals. And sometimes we are joined by special guests, and today is one of those days. And I'm very excited to welcome Dr. Shuxuan Zhou as our special guest today. And Dr. Zhou has been working in data equity for much of their career. Graduated from the Department of Gender, Women, and Sexuality at the University of Washington, and is still affiliated with that faculty. And created a nonfiction manuscript based on her work on labor history and activism of women forestry workers in China in the second half of the 20th century. Currently, Dr. Zhou spends their time as a community-based researcher, writer, and activist, and is a core member of the Parlor Outreach Project of the Greater Seattle area. And that project, we're actually going to have Dr. Zhou back to talk about at another time. But today, we're going to talk about their work as the Race and Social Justice Strategic Advisor at the Seattle Office for Civil Rights. And I'll let her talk about the details, but essentially, Dr. Zhou is an essential part of that civil rights team, working with data, racial equity, how to collect anti-racist data, and how to develop tools to understand, make sense, and communicate progress, hopefully, towards the anti-racist goals of a lot of interdisciplinary teams. So with that, I'm going to turn the mic over to Dr. Zhou. And for today, Dr. Zhou has said that it would be most helpful for her to have you ask questions in real time. So sometimes we listen for a while and then we turn it over to live Q&A. We're encouraging you to ask questions in real time as we go along. So if you have a question or want to make a comment at any time, starting immediately, we suggest that you either put it into the chat, and you can either put it publicly with the chat menu set to everyone, which means everybody who's here will be able to see your comment or your question, or you can chat privately to me in the Zoom chat, and I'll do my best to amplify your question or your comment. Or if you want to unmute yourself, we ask that you raise your hand before you unmute yourself, just because we often have over 100 people here at this meeting. So we want to kind of not talk over each other. So if you want to unmute yourself at any point, just raise your hand and we will get to you. So thank you so much, Shuxuan, for visiting us today, and I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Heather, for the invitation. Even before the invitation, I had been a big fan of We All Count. And you know, the data equity framework you use, I also really use it a lot in my work. And so, yeah, just feel very honored when I saw the invitation. I was like, oh yeah, I can finally really join the community. And thank you all for join me today. And as Heather said, I wear different hats as a writer, but also community-based researcher. But today, mostly I was talking about my work at City of Seattle. And I don't have slides, but I will share my screen so you will see several of the work projects, several websites or mural board that I use in my work. Feel free to raise questions in the middle of my talk, so you'll bring me some comfort that you are listening and then we are engaging with each other. But there's still Q&A time in the end, so if you have some questions that is not really specifically about what I'm talking about here, but related generally about data equity principles, etc., and then we can go to deep discussion in the end. So before I share my screen of the products, I do want to share a few more words about my background. I graduated from gender studies, and then at that time, my major discipline training was in anthropology and history. So I was mostly using qualitative data, right? And then, but after I graduated from UW, I was selected by ACLS to be a public fellow in city of Seattle. And the idea is to have folks who have PhD degrees in humanities to go to nonprofit or public sector to see how the skills are transferable, the analytic skills and other research skills are transferable in other area. So when I first came to city of Seattle, my team, which is the Race and Social Justice Initiative Strategy Team in Office for Civil Rights that support citywide racial equity work, gave me this concept as Racial Equity Lab. That's the name at the time. They said they just have been thinking for many years that they want a digital and technology platform that can help increasing capacity in citywide racial equity work, but they don't want it to be a transactional platform. And then there's a balance there, but everybody has different ideas about how it should be. And because I was trained to be an anthropologist, and so I talk with different parts of the network, including people who are in leadership position, but also folks who are in so-called RCI change team. That's how we name them. They are frontline staff, but who have devoted their time to work on racial equity, internal or external issues in their department. Right? I was talking with them about, okay, what do you see will be the most helpful for you? And there are two issues like emerge for me as a main issue. One is they feel like there's no coordination, not no coordination, but it's like lack of adequate coordination across different departments. So for example, there's one department who might holding the work around food, like for example, giving out the fresh food box from to folks who need it, who experience food insecurity. So that's one department. But it can be another department who work with youth, right? Work with youth and children in terms of nutritional education, and also the work related farm to school. There can be another department who are working on transportation issues to support restaurants or BIPOC-led farms to make sure that they are accessible from public transportation. But there's not so much coordination because people don't really know like what you are working on, what I'm working on, unless they know each other, unless they happen to know each other, right? So that's one of the requests, say we want something to increase coordination for folks who are working on the same area. And then another one is from community, right? Particularly in city of Seattle, there's a community called Chinatown International District. And then, so community members said that we know that city of Seattle do a lot of racial equity toolkit. Let me send my references to the chat. So later you can read about racial equity toolkit. There's a webpage there. But generally, racial equity toolkit is a 6-step guidance about how when department trying to design policy or planning, and then these are the 6 steps we suggest them to follow to analyze, right? Define who are the racial equity outcome, who are the most impacted community, and then find data, including narratives and lived experiences in your community engagement, and then do the burdens and benefits analysis, and then keep reporting back to the community whenever there's something changed. So that's a tool that now City of Seattle, all different departments use a lot. But the problem for community is a lot of times they see for example, in one neighborhood, there's over 20 racial equity toolkits. It's being done across different departments. Right, it's great that city are trying to engage with with the community, but from city employees, but also from community members, that what I heard was, okay, I'm not sure if you, first of all, if you have coordination. Second is if you're actually moving towards the same equity goals. Like, do you have an idea what is a thing in the long term, right, you want to do? So these are the two issues that I heard in my engagement with the city employee and the community, and trying to tackle a little bit, just a baby step with my with the racial equity lab. And now I can show you some of the, in the end, like there are two major work products. The first one is called racial equity. Oh, it says host disabled participant screen sharing. Can you make me a
There you go. That should be set up.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna share my browser. Can you see my screen now? Yeah, okay. So one of them is called City Racial Equity Action. This is the public side, right? So this is the data output. So from last year to this year, actually we have more actions that I just need to export to this website. But generally we collected 400 actions across from 14 city departments. So far, not all of the city department has been participated in this one. So it just requires more mobilization. But 14 departments submitted their action. And for on this page, you can search by keywords and also search by the areas, right? What people said, if we are all working on equitable development, or if we're working on environment, and then there's a place, there's a database we can know. No matter if we are in the same department, in the same team, we know what you're working on. And here is a place to select departments. And of course, when the action is planned for, right? So there are some actions that started from 2016, but it's still lasting. They are, for example, the transportation plan or comprehensive plan, urban planning. It's long project. So I wanna just do a test run to see what's in each. And in today's presentation, I will use food-related themes as a just as an example to show how across different websites how it works. So when I search food, there are 24 actions that show up here, right? And I just wanna.
Can I ask you a question now about the actions? Because I know you said you wanted questions as we had them.
Yeah.
So are these actions actions that are being undertaken by kind of any team or any department in the city?
Yeah, so any team,
Okay.
department at city. But as I said, only 14 departments participate last 2 years, so it's not like
Sure.
all. I was thinking if we have everybody mobilized to participate in this database, it would double the size.
I see. And all of these actions are either coming up soon or are active. It's not kind of a catalog of old, or is it a mixture?
Yeah, so usually it's like right for that year. For example, we started collecting in 2021. So there's one only for 2021, but they also for 2021, 2022. So, but they are either ongoing or from last year. Yeah. And
Right.
just let me see if I can, maybe I just find the first one to show you what's in each action. And then I will show you the internal collection side. So for each action, I want to make sure that I'm showing the right one for the food, so I can keep consistency later when I talk about other things. Oh yeah, I was collecting this one. Let me try again. Right, it didn't work. Okay. So this one is about expand the Fresh Box retailer network. So Fresh Box is a food program. Each year there will people based on income and also different kinds of factors. People can apply for Fresh Box, and then they will all receive the monthly, basically stipend to shop in like farmers market or other healthy food locations. And here you will say what are the major deliverables for each action. There'll be a place say what we will deliverable, what's the deliverable. And so for example, you will say, you know, like 3 supermarket store and up to 8 new small food retailers will be included. And they will prioritize retailers located in RSI neighborhood. It's based on RSE index. So priority areas is based on index. There's a place to say depending on income and also language access and existing health and social marginalization. So there are several small, tiny, like they are neighborhoods or the blocks have been determined as the priority area in city of Seattle. And then you will say strategy, like how they plan to engage with the community and how do they see that is aligned with citywide racial equity work. And then the outcomes, right? They try to achieve in terms of equity, achieve racial equity in geographical and financial access to healthy food, or achieve equity across race in small business startup growth and support, and how they plan to measure our outcomes. So the measure has been, how to measure outcomes, I think has been, you know, a challenge for a lot of folks, probably including, you know, all of us. And then when city employees come to, city different teams come to me as a data and equity advisor, a lot of times there's also a question. And for me, the answer, instead of, I'm gonna tell you how to do it, and part of for this database is, let's see what we have been doing. Let's learn from each other, right? So so this is a database that they can also see how different departments measure their outcomes too. And then of course there is a contact. So when community look at it, if they have questions, it's like, I don't know if you're really doing it right. I'm gonna contact you. And yeah. And there's a related links from the website too.
That is so awesome. Even before we even get to the internal one, the public facing kind of catalog is, I can already see, has so much use in helping residents and local advocates and people who have questions about how to engage something. And it's written in languaging that is very non-jargony, which is really, really refreshing and lovely. Peter has a really good question, which is the database behind this action tracker something new that was built specifically for this project? Or did this system already exist and somebody kind of build a skin or a user interface to make it more kind of accessible to the community?
It's new, and then the internal one is Power App.
Okay.
Yeah, so basically I work with IT, and then I work with like the RSI network to determine these are the data points we want. And then I work with IT to say, okay, can you help me build this Power App? And I can write down how I want it. And then, but I didn't know how to build the Power App. So they helped me do that.
Yeah. You don't have to do everything all the time. So that's really, really cool. And it's so impressive that they built the infrastructure to do this, like specifically for this. Another question that came in that, because I know we told people to ask questions as they have them, is in your opinion, Dr. Zhou, what do you think are the biggest benefits to making sure that different departments can see what each other are working on?
Yeah, I think there are actually a lot of things.
Yeah.
But most important is, first of all, is sharing of knowledge. I really think like I don't believe in experts no more than people who are actually doing the work. I think folks who are doing the work are very close to community, and then but they're close to different kind of communities. And then I want to build a peer shared knowledge base to say we can work with each other. And second, from leadership, city leadership place is to think about budgeting, right? How we effectively use the budgeting for community engagement. Like when we do a long-term engagement, we can actually benefit different programs instead of everybody do a tiny engagement, only reach out to 10 folks for 2 times. But if we do a 1 year focus on food, and then how can we actually benefit different programs? And that's about, like how to efficiently use the limited city budget for the biggest benefits in terms of equity. Yeah, so that's my answer.
That's a fantastic answer. And I think it really resonates with almost anybody that's trying to do data equity work on the ground. Is the more we can break down the silos, just what you're saying, the more we can break down the silos, the more impact we can get. I'm going to ask you one more question that's coming in. If you were given $1 million of a budget, what features or changes would you make to like the next version of this really amazing system?
I know, I built this based on zero budget.
I know.
Based on the commitment of different departments and also folks who spend their time, and also, for IT support to really help me, and there was no budget involved. If I have $1 million, and I think I want to do more community participatory design for the next step, to define what we should do for the next one. For this platform, which I really hope that I did more, is to work with more community to determine how they want to see, what are the interactions they want to be able to do with this website. And I didn't want to burden them too much, and I didn't have a budget to compensate people for their labor time. So if I have 1 million, or what's the number? And
that was the question. 1 million.
Yeah. So I will start from there. I don't think I think just because my academic training, a lot of times I don't really think I have an immediate answer. I will go to people before my answer emerges.
That's awesome. That's such a great answer.
Okay. So should I continue?
Yes, yeah. Please.
Okay.
Thanks.
And now, yeah, thank you, Heather. And now I'm gonna show you the internal phase. So this is the Power App, right? And you can see it has besides this view, there's also a user guide, which is like 15 pages, and I will not show you. But basically, user guides has all the instructions, not only what Heather mentioned, the language, we really tried hard to say, please don't use city jargon. And then this is a public website. So think about how people can understand your language. And I think like I can see folks improved across different years, but still there are some acronyms in there. So that's one part of a user guide. But the other part I want to highlight more is so in the references I sent out, there are 2 of the principles. I think it's the top 2 items. And one is the Data Feminist Manifesto, No. And the second one is anti-racist principles. And because I was not a quantitative person, so when I really go into this hard data work, and I feel like these are the principles I really stick with. And both of them share like one thing, which is data and also technology is not only about the platform, not only about analysis, and it's about all the power relations around it, around the project. And it's also about like how we can build accountability, and how when this tool is used by folks, how they change the relationship among different stakeholders and different parties and groups. And so in the user guide, what we clearly named and request the department to do is, as the leadership, which are the department management team, and also the frontline change team, the staff group, work together to build, for depending on the size, right? For the tiny department, they just should all work together. If they only have less than 10 people, they should all work together for this action. If they are like 500, 1,000 kind of department, they should have a work group composed with leadership and also the change team staff to work together to build a work group. And then they will meet several times, determine what they plan to do, and then to pro feedback for each other, because they have different positionality, to really like think through what are the priorities and how different actions within their department can work with each other. And the reason is, previously we know the racial equity work, if we ask for a reporting, there will be a lot of times there are two results. One is leadership own it so much they don't share with the staff, right? And then the other result is they say, okay, you are the change team, you do it. Like, this is racial equity. But because change team are staff, and then they don't really own that kind of authority and power and a certain type of knowledge about budgeting and HR. So what they can include in their plan a lot of times become their internal plan of how do we do things related to workforce equity, training, etc. So this time when we do racial equity plan, we say you have to work together. And how can we make them accountable in this working? There's a part of it, it's the training. We go to different departments and say, this is what we suggest you should be doing. And second is, let me show you. So for each of the departments, we ask them to put in their team member. And so they will put in their role, right? Like change team members or department leadership. And, it can be the key staff. So so basically, if they don't put in from both sides, and then the system will not let them go through this, through this system. Yeah.
That is really, really cool.
And I'm trying to find the one related to food so we can see across different platform. But
yeah,
anyway, there's just a lot of each division or each department can have their own. I can find the food one.
It's okay. No rush. Don't worry. All good.
So many. Anyway, okay, it's here. Office of Sustainability. Yeah, here.
Oh yeah, there it is.
It's the same one.
Okay. And so that's how they entered in the back end.
Yeah, that's how they enter in the back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so action title, description, project contact, major deliverables, and they can put in 3 related links. It actually has, and then impacted neighborhoods, we have several selections, equity area to community outcome. And if they are doing racial equity toolkit and how they plan to. So you see the backside, it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of amazement and awe and love for this tool happening in the chat. And there's some practical questions coming in, and then there's some more kind of conceptual questions. But since we're looking at the tool, I'm gonna amplify some of the practical questions, and then we'll get into the more conceptual. And one of the practical ones that many people have asked is, how long does this take you to do?
You mean design the platform, or how when people put in the action?
Actually, the first question is, how long did it take you from the idea of the platform to actually having a functional working platform?
Oh, it's actually pretty fast. So Power App,
Excellent.
once you know how to do it, like our IT person is like, she's brilliant. She has been helping
Wow.
so much. So I think when I did roll down like each of all these words and how, you know, how I want it to show up, I just don't know how to transfer it into app. So I sent the document to her, and I think she only took one or 2 weeks to give me the first draft. And then I did testing for 50 or 60 folks. I just sent out a call to say, you know, I have this tool and you all will need to use it. How about you join for my testing? So the user testing. And then we found a lot of issues and questions, and then spent about maybe 2 or 3 weeks for both testing and fixing. So once the idea and once you know, you really know what the questions are and how you want to design it, that's there. But of course, after the first year of use, which is 2021, and then we find out some issues that from the front end, so the website design end, because there are a lot of things that make sense for the internal data input, but it doesn't make sense for data output. It gave the front end folks some hard time of, you know, people put in their whatever format they want to put in, and then so this is when we decided to say, okay, we're gonna give you the instruction of one item separated.
I see. I see.
Yeah,
Right.
but when it first started use, it was like, I think 2 months. I think it's very fast.
That is mind-blowingly fast. I think there's unanimous, like that is amazingly fast. I was thinking it was going to be, your answer was going to be much longer than that. And just another technical question, because there's so much going on in the chat. People really like this. If anyone would like to unmute themselves and kind of articulate their own series of questions, feel free to raise your hand, and we'll just unmute you. But if not, I'll just keep amplifying the questions in the chat. And one of the, yeah, you go.
Can I say,
go, Dr. Zhou.
Can I take one more question about this? Because I do have 2 things. I know I invited folks to join, but I want to cover 2 things. Yeah. So one question.
No, you go ahead and finish, and then we'll do the questions after.
Oh, okay, sure. Then I would.
It's great.
Yeah. Okay. So let me close this one. Yeah, I will just close those. And then another site in connection with racial equity actions, racial equity research. So let me just go ahead, show you the food one. I think that's the best way to show what's in the content. So I work with UW Evans School of Public Policy. Like they have a graduate student consulting lab. So we work together for 6 months for some of the content here, after I already have a design of what I want in the content. Right. So for each, it has a definition of what is food insecurity, and then the major things about food insecurity and who is affected by food insecurity. This is about, you know, in Seattle and King County, so it's regional. A lot of this content is tailored for regional, because food insecurity might look different in Seattle than some other area who are rural, right? And then, yeah, so there are dashboards that we embedded from King County. We created several dashboards, but for food insecurity, that King County already has a great one, so we will use theirs. And then how can we measure food insecurity? There are several ways that it says here. For example, you can measure by government food assistance. There's a common way, and it will say like pros and cons, right? And then you also say, you know, you can measure by food banks and food insecurity survey, food desert, and then I think there's also a critique of the term of continue using food deserts. And then there are stories from communities. We embedded from. So this one, I think the barrier for us that we experience is we found a lot of brilliant community generated video, but Seattle IT's role is it has to be from city owned channel. So we cannot just, unless we ask the owner of the video for us to use, but then I didn't have a budget, so I don't want to do that to folks. So ended up we just use more like city owned videos. Yeah, here's a root cause one. This is a focus I want to show. So the end result is food insecurity, right? But it also, and then it gave the analysis of there are different reasons cause, for example, like unstable housing. And if you click unstable housing, it will show you when families don't have an affordable, reliable place to live, it disrupts their ability to obtain and prepare a nourishing meal. And when you click this, it will give you either a research report or a narrative of how it actually works or how it impacts communities. And same thing, like when you trace up so what causes unstable housing, you will say unemployment, barrier to housing, and wealth inequality. And for each one, you will have research reports or some analysis that folks can read. So it's a public education site, particularly for city employees who are working in this area, but also it's accessible to the public. Yeah. And
so this root cause thing that we're looking at, that's accessible to the public as well?
Yeah. The whole website, this racial equity research website is accessible to everybody.
Yeah. And this root cause thing is so amazing. it is, and we have many questions about the root cause thing too. So you let us know when you want us to start the questions again. But we're paying rapt attention to the presentations.
Yeah. Do you want to maybe tell me a couple of questions related to this specific website and then this root cause, and then later I'm going to show how the root cause idea have been used in like specific planning and policy work in the city of Seattle. But in terms
absolutely. Yes, for sure. So I think the most common root cause question that we're getting is who decided which root causes went where and what literature or research to link to? Who decided that?
Yeah, so the short answer is the graduate students and me. And then after we did it, we did send out for each area, there are about 5 to 10 so-called experts, right? They are the people who are working in the city and who are working in the food area. So we send out to them to say, okay, here is what we will work on after reading all of the references, after reading all of this.
Right.
And then, and also the references we included here. Can you tell us that in your real work, do you think there's something we should add in here, or if something seems too academic but doesn't apply for Seattle area specific context? But most of the feedback I heard from folks who are specialists, and they think the general draft we put it on was on point.
And was that challenging? We're getting a lot of questions of like, that seems like it would generate a lot of friction and conflict between people who thought that, certain root causes were being left out or certain root causes were in when they shouldn't be. Was that a challenge internally or not?
I think it's a challenge. It was a challenge for me. I felt like I was, because when the first root cause design, and I will show you another one, like when we use in real work, it's much more complicated than this, right? So when we first put together, it's more like roots. But then because IT use this website platform, it only allow these specific kinds of shape. So they say, have to narrow down to 5 roots, and then it has to be 4, and it cannot be more than that. yeah, so like there were, I was like, no, it's impossible. You must be able to find other things. And then we went back and forth. And at one point, I'm like, yeah, actually, I should trust IT folks. They have been trying very hard to be helpful. And so that's a challenging. And after we decided that's a limitation, and we send out to different departments, specialists to say, we know this is not complete, but these are the things we're trying to find. They are major root causes, and folks are very understanding of what the barriers we experience.
That's fantastic that you were able to continue on with with the iterations and the back and forth and get it done, because it is such a good example. So I'm happy to pause the questions there and let you continue to show us that example, because I think that example is actually going to answer a lot of the questions that are in the chat.
Right. So this is how it's used in real life, right? So this is when I work with food action plan and the work group across different departments, we did the root cause analysis. And so basically, this is a framing, right? Like why we should do root cause analysis, because a lot of times when we don't see the roots, we try to think about the short-term transactional measures, which are a lot of times are useful because they are immediate issues. But at the same time, we should spend time and energy investment to address the root cause. And then, it has a different, like what's a general idea of how to do root cause analysis. And I want to give credit to equity and the results, because I learned these two images from their training. And for each steps, I ask people to think about questions like what are institution, policy, conditions, and also key causes and contributing factors. And then I gave them a brief example of when we did it in OCR and how it was look like in my office. But I didn't want to give folks a very too detailed prescription. I feel like it will limit how folks think, and then give them this example. Generally, like that's how we put on public website, but we know it's incomplete. And the goal for this exercise was when food action plan, trying to make a plan for next 5 years for City of Seattle's food related actions. There are so many. Can you imagine that there are over 100 actions? And then, but how do we prioritize? So that's the goal, right? And I want to show you the purple ones are the ones that the facilitators put together, right? These are the indicators of problems that we either read so much in data, or when the food action team, they did extensive community engagement. What are the issues people keep mentioning? And so here,
okay. Can I get you to zoom in just a tiny bit more? Thanks. Thank you so much. That's perfect. Thank you.
Let me maybe move it here. Right, because they are all on the same line, you can see better.
So the things that are in purple, if I understood you correctly, the things that are in purple are the things that the community kept repeating and saying were their lived experience?
Yeah, it's the indicators of inequity. Yeah, but community didn't mention all the percentage, right? So they mentioned the issue and we found the data.
Right. So the idea, the topic came from the community, and then the kind of numbers you went and found.
Not I went and found, the food action team went and found.
The food action team.
Take the credit for that. Yeah. So when I let the group do the exercises, we put all of the purple ones all on the same line. Now they are not on the same line because after the exercise, I rearranged them to make more sense. And so for when they are all in the same line and it's the same thing, right? And ask people to think about why. So basically for each level. for each level, you think about, for example, this one, the housing. Households are twice as likely as white households to experience food insecurity in King County. And why? Housing is a large percentage of household budget, leaving less money to buy food. And then, housing is not affordable, and yeah. And it will start saying BIPOC lack of wealth generation, ability to build wealth on resources, and single family zoning, which is still in Seattle, and loan bank redlining prevent BIPOC communities. And there's also one about separate uses in zoning, enable control and speculation, reduce community access to power. So that's how, but of course, when we really do a root cause analysis, they're all connected together, right?
Yeah.
Like one roots to several indicators, or one thing have different roots. And in the end, it looked like this. And this is after only, I think we did 90 minutes. So I wouldn't think it's like it's complete, but it's a 90 minutes mapping we did together. And I want to say how the food action team used it is, we say, okay, so we went together and created all the messy data, and I came home and then kind of rearranged them to make it more like a different steps. And here are the red ones that, for me, these are the closer to a roots, and also it's somehow addressable by city policies to some extent. So circle them, put them in a square. These are the food action plan priorities.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
And is there a connection between the food action plan priorities and then what we saw in that first kind of public facing website of the various activities?
The website has been done like much earlier than this one. I would say, the food action plan saw that demo, and then they thought it'd be helpful for me to do an exercise with them, so they can have this priority, and then they use this priority as one of the criteria together with others, including feasibility, right? There are something is not within the jurisdiction of City of Seattle, and and then for the different departments to rank like which are the priorities they want to prioritize in the action plan. This, I will say, this is a tool that I find useful in interdepartmental big and long-term planning projects. When it gets into a place that we already heard from communities, and knowing that there are all the actions we can take, and then what are the most strategy, what aligns with the equity long-term strategy more.
Got it. Got it. Yeah, that is a really, really useful tool. And how much of that, what you're talking about, like the prioritizing and the decision-making process, is made public right now? Like
this process made to public? I don't think this is a more internal exercise, but I do want to give kudos to Food Action Plan. They, in every step of their for this team, in every step they are work, like, determine what are the indicators, what are the issue, and then after they determine the priority, they always go back to the community to say, here's what we decide. What do you think? What we are missing. So it requires kind of internal exercise, but it also requires there are folks who have sustainable relationship with community to keep going back there.
Yeah, that's great. That makes a lot of sense. It's a really cool, you've brought to us today many different puzzle pieces of kind of how to figure out a public policy strategy, how to get your many departments to start even thinking about how to work together, and then how to start making that public, the various initiatives, so that the communities can actually see in a practical way, what's going on and how it's connected to the upstream root causes. 3 amazing tools.
Thank you.
Thank you
Now
so much.
Yeah, now I just started reading the comments.
Yeah, there's many comments. We won't get to them all today for sure, but like I always say, we can always continue the conversation in the community forum, because we'll post this video, and I and the We All Count team are in the community forum. So if you have other questions, we can work on getting you connected to resources and questions. But do you think that you have time for one more question?
Yeah.
Okay. I know we've asked a lot of technical questions. I think we'll try and ask a conceptual question,
Yeah.
which is, I'm just looking for the, what I wanted to do. Here it is. Could you talk a little bit about the benefit that you see accruing by looking at these individual actions? And I think this question came up during the first, like the public facing one, where we could look at all the different initiatives, like the hundreds of different initiatives. It seems like an unusual idea to show the individual actions instead of what is often done, which is kind of showing the goals and then the objectives and then the strategies. And your tool kind of flips that on the head. And have you seen advantages? Have you seen things that that's enabling to happen that the other kind of top-down way isn't as good at?
Yeah. So actually, I think after I collect all the data from action, and I did do a data analysis to, I don't want to show you the Tableau dashboard, but anyway, I put together a Tableau dashboard to analyze this data, to say, how many people are working on these outcomes and how they're connected to each other. And then how many people are doing internal workforce work and how many people are doing the external ones. And that for me is there are two kinds of grand view or macro view of what city is doing. One is from the leadership to say, here are our strategies and here are things we are going to do, but does it really work on the ground?
Mm-hmm.
Is it how it show up on the ground? And I'm more curious about what's happening on the ground, right? So based on the action and the analysis of the action, and here is a comparison to say, what's the gap between what people who are in the leadership position thinking, how we do racial equity work, then when it's really happening on the staff level, what are the different teams are conceptualizing, what are their goals. Yeah, so that's one. Yeah,
it's such a great idea. It's I resonate so much with what you're saying, how important it is to kind of highlight that gap and help anybody, whether they're internal to the team or living in the community, understand and have practical access to both kind of the macro and the micro, what you're saying. And this tool is really, really amazing. I can say for sure, based on the comments, both public and the ones that are being sent privately to me, we could definitely spend the whole rest of the day talking with you. I think what I said at the outset of today is true. We are 100% going to ask you to come back. I know you have another project that we want to talk with you about, but the speed and amount of resources that you are developing, when you're like, oh yeah, I have this tablet dashboard. I thought, of course you have a tablet dashboard. Like the amount of really practical tools that you are building and putting to action is impressive. And a lot of people are definitely have been taking notes and are gonna kind of take these ideas back and see if they can get them going in their own cities and their own municipalities at the state level, because lots and lots of us here are all kind of trying to do that same thing that you talked about, like how to go from the macro to the micro and make it meaningful, not just performative. And you've done such a good job of that. And unfortunately, we're going to have to leave it there because we are at time. I'm quite sure, Dr. Zhou, that if you could get a standing ovation on Zoom, you would be getting a standing ovation right now for sure. And I will absolutely be following up with any questions that people still have to see if I can get some responses from you, and also to invite you back for sure.
Thank
So
you all
thank
so
you.
much for the engagement. Yeah, it's really humbling to show your work product, and yeah.
Excellent. Well, it's gorgeous work product. And thank you everybody who came. It's always very, very good to see you for Talking Data Equity on Fridays. And we will not actually be here next Friday. My son is getting married on Friday of next week, so I will not be here. There is no Talking Data Equity next Friday, but we'll make sure that you do get an invitation to the following Friday when we have another special guest on Talking Data Equity. So I'll see you in 2 weeks, and have a great rest of your day. Bye, everyone.